Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. I'm ready for the event.
U.S. Embassy in Kiev, Ukraine. This is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Ambassador Yovanovitch from the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, Ukraine. How do you hear me?
Madam Ambassador, I hear you loud and clear. And to you and to the students of America House, welcome to the International Space Station.
Well, I think that you can see we've got a really excited audience here in Kiev. There's a bunch of people, Americans, Ukrainians, and everybody's thrilled to be talking to you tonight. So we've collected questions from all over Ukraine from people eager to hear about your adventures in outer space and any advice you have for aspiring scientists and engineers. And I can tell you from our pre-talk, there are a bunch of them here of all ages, not just youth. I think there are others as well. So our first question comes from Kostya in Kiev. He asks, what kind of training did you do to become an astronaut?
Well, we select astronauts with a bunch of varied backgrounds. We've got astrophysicists, engineers, medical doctors, test pilots. We got the whole gamut. I've got Joe Akaba here. He's a teacher, an educator. And so we all come with all a bit different backgrounds, but we get the similar astronaut training where we have to learn about the systems of, for example, the space station, the science on the space station, how the toilet works. We have to learn about how to fix things. We have to learn about the experiments that we do on the science equipment. We have to learn how to do spacewalks. We'll have to learn how to be able to ride the rocket uphill and ride the rocket downhill. So there's a wide variety of stuff that happens when you're an astronaut. And the neat part is you never know what you're going to be doing from day to day and how different the different days are going to be. So it's a lot of different things, but that's what makes the job so interesting and so challenging.
So is there, this is a question from Alina in Rybchak, Ukraine, and it really follows on to what you just said. She'd like to know, what is the most important thing about being an astronaut?
The most important thing about being an astronaut is that you get along with other people. I mentioned that you have these varied backgrounds and varied experiences, but when we come up here as part of a crew, we have to be able to work together. And it can be busy, it can be stressful, it can be long days, but you got to be able to understand yourself, relate to other people, and figure out how to work as cohesively as a crew to be able to get the mission done. So that's what we find, and we try and really check out when we go ahead and hire people is what kind of person are they, and would we want to be on a mission with them for a long time, be able to get the job done.
Well, that's really interesting because I bet a lot of people in this room thought the same thing I did, which is it was not going to be the old interpersonal skills issue. It was going to be something about science or math, which are, of course, also very important for your mission. So Bogdan in Kiev wants to know, what is the future of space exploration?
The future of space exploration is pretty darn exciting right now. We've got, companies that are building new space vehicles. In the U.S. alone, we've got the Boeing and the SpaceX company that are building crewed capsules that are going to come up here to the space station here, hopefully by next year. And that'll allow NASA to finish our Orion vehicle, which will start taking us out beyond low Earth orbit and start taking us out towards the moon and towards Mars. And that's the kind of stuff that we need to be doing to be able to continue exploring and eventually get onto Mars. And the fact that no country is going to go alone to Mars. It's going to be a human effort. We're going to have to do an international partnership just like we do with the International Space Station. And that's why it's so important the work we do here, forging the alliances and the partnership and making it all work country to country, that there's going to be an example for us when we go ahead and go and try and do that major Earth exploration mission from the people that live here to another heavenly body like Mars and go check it out, hopefully in the near future.
Well, that really is exciting. And I just, since you put that little capsule out there, I just have to ask a follow-up question. So how is it that you're just hanging there and not, kind of rolling around in space? Are you like, are your feet in stirrups or something? What's the secret?
Foot stirrups.
magic. So Oleg from Venezia would like to know if you are growing plants on the space station, and if so, why are you doing that?
Great question. And we have astronaut Joe Acaba, who has been growing lettuce. 5 different types of lettuce he's been growing here on the space station, and we're about to harvest it come this Friday. Why are we doing that? Because as you can imagine, food takes a lot of space and weight. And if we're going to go on a long duration mission, we're going to have a pretty big spaceship to be able to feed the people while we go there. But if we imagine a seed, doesn't take a whole lot of space or a whole lot of weight. And if we can figure out how to grow a lot of our food, then that makes it a lot easier to build a spaceship to have more scientific stuff, more propulsion, or more, maybe a recreation room on our spaceship like you see in all the movies. So that's really important for our sustainability, not only en route to another planet, but maybe once we get there.
Well, I bet it'll be pretty nice on Friday night to have that fresh lettuce. A former colleague of ours from the U.S. Embassy, Regine Stokes, is wondering what the solar eclipse back in August, what did that look like from your vantage point at the International Space Station?
For us, none of us had ever seen a solar eclipse from space because they don't happen that often. And we were amazed that we've got this sea of normally white clouds or the blue of the ocean, and there's usually a kind of a white tint to everything because the sun's lighting up the atmosphere. Well, there was this huge, just black circle, and we were amazed at the size of the shadow of the moon onto the surface. And I mean, inside that circle, I mean, big bright white clouds and earth around it, but it was just black. And it really altered the colors of the things on the other side of the umbra or the shadow of the moon. And then we also had special filters on our cameras that allow us to take pictures actually of the sun. And we had an opportunity to see the sun on 3 passes, and to see the sun, get absorbed by the moon's shadow was really, really neat. And we were able to take pictures just like you guys did on the ground, and see the eclipse.
Well, that sounds really, really cool. So Elena in Kiev wants to know how you spend your free time in space when there's not a solar eclipse.
For me, most of my free time is spent trying to take pictures of our amazing, beautiful planet. It's so amazing to see, and you're so changed by the experience of being able to look down and know that every minute of your life and everyone you've ever known is down there underneath you, and you're moving along at 6 miles or 10 kilometers every second, going around the Earth every 90 minutes. It's just every orbit is different, the weather's different, the sun is different, and so we're up there just taking pictures so that we can try and do our best to share it with all of you on the ground. Because unfortunately, we've only had 500-something humans going to space so far, and we need those new vehicles and boom in the space exploration business so that a lot more people can see it and experience the beauty of our planet from up here as well.
That's a really inspiring answer. Thank you. So here's going from the really serious to something a little lighter and a little perhaps more fun. Kirill from Kharkiv asks if you could show us something interesting, like maybe how you drink a cup of coffee or wash your hair in space, or I don't know what.
Well, since I already showered, we'll go ahead and try. This is some apple cider. And you notice we have to have it, we bring it up dry, we add water to it, and then our straws have to have a lock, because if they didn't, the liquid would just come out. But water behaves a little differently in space. Oh, look at it go already. All right. So if we let it go, you can see the water just comes up and forms a bubble. and you can see that it just floats. And so the surface tension holds it all together, and so we try to be careful about using our locks on our drinks so that we don't splatter our buddies.
What does it taste like? Does it taste the same?
For me, the drinks taste the same. Your taste buds get altered a little bit when you get up here. Things seem, for most people, a little blander, and so sauces are a way to make the food feel a little more like home when you eat them.
Yulia in Ivano-Frankivsk would like to know how much longer you will be stationed on the International Space Station. You've already been there 4 months, is that right? And what you're going to be doing next.
Well, our crew on Soyuz 51S with Sergei Ryazanskiy and Paolo Nespoli will leave on December 14th. And we'll land in Kazakhstan that day. And then Sergei will go back to Moscow. Paolo and I will head back to Houston. And then we'll go through a phase where we'll be getting our bodies rehabilitated back to gravity. We'll be doing all the medical testing, because the science isn't just in glove boxes or on test stands or going on outside. We are the science too. Because I mentioned about needing food for a long journey. Well, we also need to protect the human bodies, because there's radiation, there's lack of gravity, which causes our bodies to change. And so the part of the experimentation is us ourselves. So we'll be getting back, rehabilitating, reconditioning ourselves. We're doing getting all the medical tests done on us. Then we'll be getting debriefs, explaining to everybody what we learned, what we saw, helping train the next set of astronauts that will be coming up here and taking care of this magnificent space station. And then the thing I look forward to the most is spending time with my wife and kids. And it's been a long time training and time up here apart, and so getting some good family time is what I'll look forward to the most.
That's great. So I have a question for you. When you went up into space, you get so much preparation. What surprised you the most?
What surprised me the most was something I had a feeling for after my first flight. But I was only up here 11 days, and it was such a whirlwind. But being up here now, 3 months, it amazes me how the human body can adapt to this environment so quickly. Just like people adapt to swimming underwater or diving and that type of neutral buoyancy. I'm just amazed that we can be working, up on this surface, and it seems perfectly normal that this is straight ahead, and that's the ceiling and that's the floor. But then one of our buddies could be over here working on this surface, and that's normal for him. And we see guys floating by and flying by in different attitudes, and it seems perfectly normal. You adapt to it so quickly. And it really only takes the human body, a couple days to where our minds know exactly where to. If I want to go over this way, I know where to push, and it'll just send me over. And if I need to go back, I just know in the right spot and I push back. And we can control our rotations and our spinning and everything. And it is so natural. Our bodies are made for it to be able to go ahead and adapt to this environment. And so, in my opinion, the human body is special, and that doesn't take something special to be an astronaut. Any one of you could be up here because your body is made for it.
Well, I think that's an amazing answer, both the visuals and your words, that any one of us could be an astronaut. And so I actually did want to ask you, do you have a special message or special advice for aspiring astronauts in Ukraine?
Certainly the thing that I've seen from the people that I know that have become astronauts is that even before they became astronauts, they loved what they did. They were passionate about most of them. We all want to learn new things. We learn something new every day. We all studied hard in school, found a field that we were interested in, whether it's geology. Or for me, my degree was in mathematics, and became a test pilot. Other people, it is hard sciences, and trying to figure things out and learning more things, always being thirsty for knowledge is a trait that all the astronauts and cosmonauts that I know have. And that's what helps us in our job to be able to be good scientists up here, good crew members, good engineers, and figure problems out, make experiments work, and ultimately take all these myriad of different things that we do and make it all work into getting the mission done and sustaining our presence here in low Earth orbit.
So we kind of polled the room to ask other questions that people might have on their minds. One question was, how do you feel mentally up there? Is it a challenge being up there?
We have a funny thing, you know, when you forget something or something like that, we call it the space stupids. Fortunately, at least in my experience, it hasn't happened that much. We do mental acuity tests, and I'm always curious to see if I've changed at all. But you get used to working up here, and there's always different things going on, so you stay really agile. And I don't think, you know, at least, and I haven't observed out of any of my crew members any cognitive or mental changes. Certainly, you get used to working, you know, the long days and the hours, and you really need downtime at the end of the day to be able to, you know, whether it's, you know, converse with other people on email, call your friends and family, or just relax and watch a TV show or a movie to give your brain a break from the high-paced daily activities that we have.
So we had another question. Does space trash crash into the space station, or do you have to like avoid it somehow?
There's not as much space trash in this lower Earth orbit that space station's in, because we're going around the Earth at 17,500 miles an hour, so we're moving pretty quick. So stuff would have to be able to, you know, have its own engine kind of to be able to stay in this low Earth orbit, because we do that. We reboost our orbit and stay in this lower orbit. But there is a lot of space trash farther out, where all the satellites are, where there's expended boosters or dead satellites and things like that. Eventually, their orbit decays and comes through the low Earth orbit that space station's at. And every once in a while, we've got people tracking this all the time. It comes to the point where we go, hey, this might get close enough to space station that we want to move, and we'll do a debris avoidance maneuver to move space station out of the way of that space trash as it descends through our orbit. Fortunately, it's nothing like the movie Gravity, and doesn't happen very often, but it is something that we're really going to have to think about as we continue, more countries become spacefaring nations, and we want to go beyond low Earth orbit through that ring of you know, space trash that we're accumulating up there.
So a couple of people were wondering, what do you miss the most?
You miss the smells. You miss feeling temperature changes and weather changes. You miss different types of foods that you're favorite of. But I think to a person, it's the human interaction with the people that you love the most. Your crewmates are great, and you really come to love your crewmates and get along with them, but they don't make good dancing partners, and, you know, typically we don't hug that much. You know, we're guys. But you know, to get a hug from my wife or my 7-year-old daughter or my 11-year-old son, you know, that's the stuff that you really miss the most. And what, you know, I know we look forward to is getting back home and seeing our families.
So this is a variation on the theme, and you kind of touched it. What's your biggest food craving?
I'd have to say a carbonated beverage would be, just because it's not only the taste, but the sensation. And we don't have that because you don't want to send gas up into space. So that probably will be one of my first things that I enjoy, besides maybe a fresh taco or a juicy hamburger or a piece of pizza.
So we see that you have two flags behind you, or to the side. One is an American flag and one is the Ukrainian flag. Where did you get the Ukrainian flag?
Picked that up last summer when my family and I were in Dnipropetrovsk. My son was born there, and so we went back there with our whole family, enjoyed a few days there in Novomoskovsk, and then also a little bit of time in Kiev. And so picked the flag up there and brought it with me.
And brought it all the way up to space, too. That's great. I think you've got an appreciative audience here.
And we'll bring it all the way back, too.
That's right. That's right. So we had a question about how do you monitor solar activities, and I think especially with regard to health issues.
Well, we are fortunate that there's just 6 of us up here on the world's biggest, most amazing technological achievement to this date for humans. But there is teams all over the world. We've got the one in Russia in Moscow. We've got the one in Munich for ESA. We've got the one in Tsukuba, Japan, outside of Tokyo. We've got our Canadians. Have a mission control for the robotic arm and the ops that they do. And then obviously mission control in Houston. And we've got literally an army of highly dedicated, amazingly talented engineers and operations people that go ahead and monitor all that. And they use the sensors that are outboard on our satellites, that are Earth-based, and a few sensors that are here on the space station to monitor all those types of things and let us know if there's anything that we need to do. And if there is huge solar flare activity, we do actually have places on space station that are a little more shielded that we'll go ahead and shelter in place at and wait out the solar particles.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
And a big thank you to all the participants from the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, Ukraine. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.